be handing over our first production Tesla semis to Pepsi on December 1st. I'll be there in person. And we'll begin ramping up production of the Tesla semi, which is a max load heavy truck.
Yeah, that's the Class 8 truck.
Class 8 truck.
No sacrifice to cargo capacity.
Yeah, no sacrifice. Exactly. Very important. No sacrifice to cargo capacity. 500-mile range. Just be clear, right? 500 miles with the cargo. 500 miles with the cargo on level ground. Yeah, fair. It's not up. A cliff. But the point is, it's a long-range truck, and even with heavy cargo. And the number of times people told me, "Oh, you can't. It's impossible to make a long-range, heavy-duty Class 8 truck." And then I asked, well, what are your assumptions about watt-hours per kilogram and watt-hours per mile? And they would look at me with a blank stare and then say hydrogen. I'm like, no, that's not the answer. I was looking for numbers. And literally, that's not a number. It's an element on the periodic table. Anyway, you obviously don't need hydrogen for heavy trucking. That's what we're trying to make here. And we'll be ramping up semi-production through next year. As like everyone knows at this point, it takes about a year to ramp up production. So we expect to see significant. We're tentatively aiming for 50,000 units in 2024 for Tesla Semi in North America, and obviously we'll expand beyond North America. And these would sell. I don't want to say exact prices, but they're much more than a passenger vehicle. So the 50,000 heavy trucks of this nature would be worth several Model Ys. Thank you.
Thanks for joining us once again. This is Greg for Teslafaninsight. The focus of our talk today is that, as you could hear, Elon was discussing the fact that not only would the semi be arriving officially at Pepsi as of December 1st, but that the goal of Tesla is to build and sell 50,000 vehicles in 2024 under the semi umbrella, both 250 and 500-mile range vehicles. So it's our conservative estimate that if in fact Tesla sets up the facilities to be able to build those 50,000 vehicles in 24, by June of 2023, Tesla's stock price will double. So that's our premise for today. We kind of wanted to run through the logic of how this might work. So upon hearing, so please take time to like and subscribe. Please join us on Patreon if you enjoy the show. And we would appreciate comments from your perspective. So I have to say that when I first heard Elon's comment about 50,000 vehicles, I was like, how are you going to produce 50,000 vehicles starting a year from now if in fact the vehicle was introduced in 2017 and we haven't gotten to 20 vehicles and it's been, call it 5 years? And so the answer to that is that, there's a lot of other vehicles that were being worked on. There's also a refinement of technology as well as sort of extensive testing of the process of this truck. So it sounds to me like things are lined up for this to happen. So there are a number of questions that pop up when we start talking about 50,000 vehicles in 2024. The first question is, are the customers there for that? Well, the answer to that is that the fleet process is that typically leases run from somewhere between 3 and 5 years. So if you have a large fleet like all the trucks, let's say at a Walmart, you wouldn't actually swap them out all at once. You'd basically have perhaps 20 or 25% of the fleet cycling into the new type of vehicle over a 3 to 5 year period. So I believe the reason why Tesla has chosen not to take new orders anymore is that once the initial orders get to the customers and those are stable and operating properly, you now have a process where those customers effectively purchase the right to finish the build out of their fleets before Tesla is able to move on and sell to either new fleets or new customers that weren't part of the initial sort of buying group. So that would work. The next question is, well, great if you've got the demand customer-wise to build out the current group of orders that you have, but how and where are you going to build those vehicles? Well, we already see the facilities that are currently producing the truck are based adjacent to the Reno production facility, but there are currently truck-related sort of production facilities being built out in both Fremont as well as in Austin. And then as we get into 25 and 26, the expansion of production will likely include definitely the Berlin facilities, but we would expect at least one more gigafactory in Europe, as well as possibly a start to delivery of these type of trucks coming out of Shanghai as well, that could be shipped to that section of the world. The next question would be, that sort of pops up that needs to be answered is, now, wait a second, if Tesla's solution actually works as described, that's 500 miles of range, all electric, etc., what about competition from both conventional and other EVs? Well, one of the interest on the EV side, the largest potential competitor would be Daimler Trucks. Their Freightliner division, Detroit Diesel division, all of their operations globally, they partner in Asia with Mitsubishi. You know, they have facilities obviously globally. So when it comes to EVs, currently it's been announced by Daimler that they're delivering electric trucks at, the full 18-wheeler size here at $400,000 per vehicle. I said it's slow because there's a head scratcher going on here, which is Daimler is delivering a $400,000 vehicle that has 269 miles of range. And after doing perhaps 30 hours worth of research on what Daimler was doing with their truck, the conclusion is that, yes, they're going to have an electric vehicle, but because of weight challenges, the Daimler is actually going to finish out weighing someplace in the between 50 and 60,000 pounds for their longest range vehicle. And in theory, you're allowed 82,000 pounds worth of carry weight, truck and freight. So in essence, they're going to be able to carry 20 to 22,000 pounds of customer weight, whereas Tesla, if it's a full weight vehicle, is coming in the 35,000 pound zone, which not exactly, but let's call it 50,000 pounds of weight. So when it comes to the Tesla Semi, when we put it directly next to the Daimler Semi, we have a situation now where Tesla is offering for about $200,000 a 500-mile range truck that allows you to carry 50,000 pounds or pull 50,000 pounds worth of freight on the freeway. This won't, one of the common comments I've been getting from this is, well, this doesn't do everything. And in that there are small sections of trucking that are inappropriate, like 500 miles is not that long, particularly if it's a cold place or these other variables. So this should be very interesting to watch how this plays out. But in essence, customers are paying half the amount for, call it double the amount of freight being moved by working with Tesla. And so this brings up further an answer as to, well, why is Tesla so confident that they'll get the market share necessary to sell 50,000 units in 2024? And I think this is the answer. I know you're thinking this, like, So I'll answer the question without it being posed, and that is, who in their right mind, when they can buy a tractor trailer for $135,000 to $150,000 currently from Freightliner, going to want to pay $400,000 to purchase an electric vehicle that gives them half the freight weight? And the answer is the Port of Los Angeles, the Port of Long Beach. They're bringing in large amounts of cargo that's being shipped, and they want to, if possible, go zero emissions from those vehicles to help with the pollution situation in the greater Los Angeles area as that freight is moved inland to various warehouses, etc. So they, because of their ability to tack on fees to those, all the containers moving, they can, in essence, afford to push through vehicles at higher cost because they have a way to, you will tariff their way to being able to afford more expensive vehicles. So I was actually kind of shocked because there's a company called Schneider that has 50 of these $400,000 vehicles from Daimler that they've evidently received, and they've indicated that they're looking forward to filling out an order of about 800 of these vehicles. So this will be interesting to see how this all plays out. Another data point is that there have been test vehicles sitting with customers, but large-scale implementation of the Daimler product has not occurred. The next thing we want to question is, will companies want to move away from conventional trucks over to EVs given the high costs that I just described? Well, if Tesla chooses to maintain its current pricing profile on the Semi, you have a situation where there are a lot of places offering $40,000 rebates. So if Tesla's closing on $200,000 less 40, that's a $160,000 truck. Compare that against a $125 to $150 conventional truck, and the bite is greater, but it's not that huge. When I heard about this $400,000 vehicle, I was kind of stunned because, you know, the components of building up a vehicle for deliveries include your initial cost of the truck. And it's a way different deal to have a truck coming in at $400,000 versus $130,000. You know, what you have to charge on freight to make that work is actually a lot higher. So I expect that Daimler will have challenges as they're trying to get customers to adopt those vehicles. But if you're in special EV situations, as we just described in the Port of Los Angeles, you know, they'll sell, but they won't sell huge numbers. The next question that comes up is, if Tesla could raise by 25% its price point and still have bananas numbers of customers, I think the lower price point actually causes the size of the marketplace to be a lot greater than it would be if they elevated prices to compete with competitors like Daimler. So the next thing that sort of pops up on all this is we've now seen ads coming out from Tesla seeking folks that could be trained into becoming part of the maintenance crew for the Semi. And I was very surprised to see this because most of the early adopters or early customers in the first 1 to 2 years of Tesla will actually be large fleets who typically maintain their own parts as well as their own service team in-house, because they can afford the downtime of waiting for manufacturers to come out and service equipment. And so because of Tesla's building out of sort of a service fleet for these vehicles being installed, it seems quite obvious that they're planning on large numbers of being sold beyond the large fleets that they've been partnered with thus far. A couple of other data points that are obvious regarding the Semi is once Daimler Benz corporate got a look at the plans of Tesla on the Semi, they actually decided to spin off the trucking division so that the trucks could seek their own path towards addressing the competitive threat that Tesla represents. I guess this makes sense because it's a separate company. They have more flexibility than they would if they were tied to what the cars were doing. But I have to say I'm a bit surprised, given that there's a lot of R&D it takes to meet up and get beyond Tesla, and that budget would have been a lot larger with two big companies attached to each other rather than one. And theoretically, there's still some relationship there, so they could buy or exchange services in some way to allow both to benefit from solutions one or the other might arrive with. I have to say I'm a bit shocked. The reason is that, in particular, Daimler has been working on trucking solution for the last 10 years, and they've had very little progress, which is articulated by the price difference between the offerings of Tesla currently and the offerings of Daimler. So I think that, and I have to say I'm a bit surprised. It'd be nice to see all the competitors do well out there, but it seems as though what's being delivered by the ICE companies to compete with Tesla is fairly inadequate. And I think the result is going to be a huge number of bankruptcies for these entities. I, as a final note, wanted to mention that I have been very, very close to the folks at Cummins Engine for a long time. And I guess 3 years ago, the CEO of Cummins indicated that, yes, Tesla would make a dent, but it was his feeling that we're 10 years away from seeing significant numbers of semis appear that might have impact entities like Cummins. And I'd have to say that for those who own the stocks of places like the Daimler Trucking Division, places like Cummins, we could actually see a pretty severe dip in the value of those companies before the sales actually occur, once it's obvious that these vehicles work. The old line suppliers, including Cummins, I believe, are going to get destroyed. So a few more things to think about, if you will, in this process. At any rate, we look forward to your comments. We're also looking forward to having the vehicles out there and running on a daily basis, with folks able to follow them and watch them do their normal process to confirm that the semi truly does work, and the delays mean that you have more finished product that customers can rely on. And if that's the case, put on your seatbelts, because Tesla is going for another run. The final component of why Tesla doubles towards the middle of next year is if we start the Cybertruck sales as planned by Elon. We also now have not only the truck revenue starting and delivering trucks, but we now have Cybertruck revenue starting to occur. And as the tandem of them start hitting, the raw numbers at the front end may not be huge, but as it's clear what the sales volume is going to be, we're actually going to see Tesla really running, because you have all this new business, new sales, new revenue and profit. They're going to be hitting the company, going with all the rest of the things that the company is doing in stationary, as well as Y3 and Model S. So I think it's going to be exciting. Look forward to your comments. This is Greg for Teslafaninsight. Tschüss, au revoir, Lehitro, Hoda Hefez, Zdravstvuyte, Ni hao ma, konbanwa. I want to also remind you, prior to lovemaking, don't forget, no more than a salad, to minimize the impact of blood flow going to a heavy meal versus other extremities. At any rate, have a great day. Bye for now, and thanks for joining us.